So welcome, Adam. Glad that you're here. You were my student. You are certainly my friend, and it's just a joy to have you. So tell everybody when you came to Southern and sort of where you're from and how God led you to Southern Seminary.
Yeah, so I am from Berea, Kentucky, and grew up there in Central Kentucky. I went to Clear Creek Bible College, which is in the southeastern part of the state. And so, honestly, I ended up at Southern Seminary because it was the closest seminary to me. You were probably the only person I knew there. But I wasn't nearly as impressed with you when I came to seminary as I was when I left. So
I'm not that impressive.
But I was there. I came in 1999 and did my MDiv and then started the PhD in 2002 and finished in 06.
Okay, so you came to Southern for a very practical reason. It was close. What did you learn about it, though, that made it more than simply the seminary that was close at hand?
Yeah, so I'm the first pastor in my family. And so honestly, when I went to Bible college, I didn't even know seminary was a thing. And so when I went to college, they encouraged me to go in seminary. And Southern was the closest. But after getting there and finding out really that it's not only the largest seminary in the world, but really perhaps the most impactful, I couldn't believe that this was at my doorstep. And so it was just an incredible experience for me. The MDiv and the PhD were very, very different experiences. But there's no question in my mind, my ministry would look a lot different had I not gone to Southern Seminary.
Okay, well, tell me, what were your favorite classes at Southern, other than preaching? I know you'd say that because you majored in preaching, did your PhD in preaching. What were the other classes that just really impacted you?
You know, I think in addition to the preaching classes, systematic theology was really a passion of mine. That was a minor in my PhD. But just in terms of having a biblical theology that shapes my preaching, I would say the theology classes were my favorite.
You're pastor of Inglewood, so you pastor a church there in Jackson, Tennessee, by Union University, and you minister to a lot of college students. And if someone came to you there and said, why should I go to Southern Seminary, what would you tell them?
Well, you know, there's lots of reasons. I think obviously the scholarship is what Southern is known for, and certainly I appreciate that and still draw from that well that I received there at Southern. But, you know, I think what really makes Southern unique is just the relationships that you form with not just the students, but the professors. You know, this one story we've just told, there are truly dozens of stories like that professors like you and others shared in my life. And even today, it shapes who I am. I can't even imagine my life, much less my ministry, apart from the relationships I formed there at Southern. I wouldn't be married to the same woman. I would not be pastoring the same church. There's just no way to calculate the ripple effect of my time there at Southern. And so I would just say that Southern is a unique place. All of our seminaries are great. There are wonderful people at all.
Yeah, they are. That's true.
But the Lord has just really blessed Southern and put a unique group of people there. And it's second to none, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I know I'm biased, but I mean, both of my sons went to Boyce. One of my sons did an MDiv at Southern and is currently a PhD student there. So, you know, I'm a believer. not just as a professor, but it really is an incredible place. Adam was teaching for us one week. It's been more than one, I'm trying to remember how many years ago. And you and Tanya and I went out to eat. I remember that Thursday night and laughed. We were just laughing, I think, so much we were disturbing the people around us. We were having just such a good time. And then the following Sunday afternoon, my phone rang and it was you. Tell them about our conversation that day and what that was about.
Well, that was Sunday, July the 10th, 2011. And that was the day my oldest son was diagnosed with leukemia. And it was such a paralyzing moment. And when we got the news, I really didn't know what to do. But the first thought that I had was, I have to call Hershael. And it's difficult to describe how comforting that phone call was to me. Again, that may be the best illustration there of how much I continue to lean on the experience there at Southern Seminary. I was pastoring a well-known church at the time. The Lord was really blessing my ministry. But in that moment, I did not need to be anyone's pastor. I needed a pastor. And there was only one person I could think of to call, and that was you. And I'll never forget the things that you said to me during that call and how it enabled me to cope with what at the moment seemed like a very, very hopeless situation. And to then pastor my family through that. So it's not just about leading a church, it's about living out your faith and being a real disciple of Christ that Southern equips you for. And that continues long after you graduate. That may be, you asked me a moment ago, why would you tell someone to come to Southern Seminary? I would say, go to Southern Seminary, because if you spend 3 years or 7 years or however long there, your relationship to and connection to Southern Seminary will continue for years after you leave.
You pastor Inglewood now, which is a very large church, but you've pastored every size of church there is.
Yeah.
Sort of, how did Southern help you pastor small churches, medium-sized churches, now a very large church? I mean, how did it equip you for all of those multiple experiences?
Well, it was interesting because I pastored 2 churches while I was at Southern. The first was a church of just 50 people. And so I was learning how to preach. In those days, you preach 3 sermons a week. And so Southern taught me how to do that. And again, it gave me a well to draw from so that I could do that. And it's just learning the mechanics of preaching. And then when I moved to a church of about 250 that grew to a church of over 600, I was at Southern in the PhD program then. And that is why I spent so much time in your office, because in addition to the theology that I needed to share with my people, I needed to know how to lead them. And it was those conversations around the lunchroom table and walking down the hallway that helped me. I can't tell you how many times I have had a conversation with a professor at Southern and just gone back to my church and said exactly what they told me to say in order to handle some very difficult situations. And so those 2 churches, I pastored while I was at Southern. And then even after I graduated and moved into some larger situations, I just have maintained those relationships. And you well know, Dr. York, how many times I've called and said, I just don't know what to do here. How do you navigate this? And to have that as a resource has really made me a better pastor.
Did Southern make you love the gospel more and more willing to share your faith than when you came here?
Yeah, certainly. I think just first of all, the depth of the gospel and what it touches became crystallized to me while I was there. And, the enthusiasm of the professors made me enthusiastic to share with as many people as I could all of the things that I was learning. So I began a practice when I was at Southern Seminary of having as my goal to share the gospel with 3 people every week. And, by God's grace, I have done that every week since I was a student at Southern Seminary. And I don't know that I would have even thought to do that apart from my time there.
And one final question is, did Southern Seminary make you love Jesus more? Did you fall more in love with your Savior while you were at Southern?
Yes, because to know him is to love him. And I know him better because of the time that I spent there. And I'm eternally grateful.
Well, I look forward to the day some years hence when some of these very students who've joined us here today will be talking about what Southern Seminary meant to them. And, we at graduation every year, our graduates recite this thing called the next in line. And we join an incredible line of God's grace that goes all the way back to our first graduating class. And for those of you who are just starting out at Southern, I just want to say, man, I'm excited you're here. I already love you in the Lord. I'm looking forward to getting to know many of you, and just know that my prayers are with you. My door is open. Anytime that I can be of service and help you, I will do that. Dr. Dooley, I love you. Thanks so much for joining us today and encouraging our hearts in this way. And Ryan, I will throw it back to you, my friend.
Well, I just want to thank Dr. Dooley and Dr. York for taking time to have the conversation with us. And I just want to encourage you all as online students that just because you're not on campus, forging relationships, that doesn't mean you can't forge relationships with professors and other students from a distance. It's going to look different, but our faculty and other students, we're all in this together. And so anytime you want to reach out to a professor or someone that's helping grade the class or another student, you'll be surprised about the relationships you can make even as an online student. So don't let that limit your involvement and getting to know other people. And so hopefully, through your classes, events like this and other things that we try to do, that you're able to connect with different people.